Welcome to the U.S.-Mexico boundary. This is the wall that is being built across the 2,000 miles that is the U.S.-Mexico boundary. The wall is about 23 feet tall. At the top, you will see some rectangular plates. The top of those plates are sharpened so that if you seek to climb them, you will be grievously injured. People have lost their arms climbing it. It is extraordinarily dangerous, and it runs approximately 700 miles of the border. Out of the 2,000 miles, is about 700 miles of this fence. The cost, according to the General Services Administration, which is the accounting and maintenance branch of the federal government, they have estimated that the cost to build this wall, including its maintenance through its useful life, which is about 25 years, is about $48 billion. The wall was designed and construction was approved to prevent terrorists from coming into the United States, to stem the flow of drugs into the United States, and to stem the flow of undocumented migrants into the United States. The wall was commenced in 2006 as a result of the tragedies that occurred September 11th, 2001 in New York City. If we look at the purposes behind the wall, as established by the then president and both Congress and Senate, with overwhelming majorities of both parties, prevention of terrorism. Over the intervening 10 years or so, 150 terrorist or suspected terrorist groups have been identified. Every single one of those groups has been within 100 miles of the U.S.-Canada border. There has been, over that decade, one suspected terrorist who came across the Mexican border. He came across in the trunk of a car through the Tijuana border entrance. Not a single terrorist or terrorist group has been found within hundreds of miles of this wall. The second purpose was to prevent or to stem the flow of illegal drugs. At the time that the wall was begun, approximately 2005, 2006, it was estimated that 20% of the heroin consumed in the United States came from Mexico. Today, 8 years or so after this program was begun, at an incredible cost, 80% of the heroin production is estimated to come from Mexico. The wall and no heroin decline in production or consumption has been determined. All of my facts, all of my figures are nothing but estimates. The Department of Homeland Security last year won the Golden Padlock Award. This is an award given by journalists who cover the government agencies as to which agency is least willing to provide information. Homeland Security was the agency that won the initial award. The Homeland Security is the third largest cabinet level department in the government. An indication of the nature of the government is that the largest department is the Department of the Army. The second largest department is the Department of Veterans Affairs. And then the third largest is Homeland Security. Whereas the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Resources, the Department of Environmental Affairs, the Environmental Protection Agency, these departments are becoming smaller and smaller as more and more of the national budget goes towards the militarization of our nation. On a side point, it's interesting to note that today we have overpassed Saudi Arabia and are second only to Nigeria in terms of the numbers of prison populations per capita in our country. This is a very sad state of affairs, and not only is this vastly expensive, in 2002, then President George Bush proposed the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, and he sought a budget of about $12 billion. And his justification was he was going to create TSA, the people that check your belt and boots at airports. He was going to consolidate immigration and border patrol. And so therefore this enormous budget was required. For 20 in 2013, then President Barack Obama proposed without any objection a budget of $72 billion for the Department of Homeland Security. The growth of that budget is extraordinary. Last year the budget was $92 billion, and although they tried to spend it, they were only able to spend $72 billion. There are 15,000 men and women stationed in the Tucson sector. That's a stretch of 60 miles of the border. Those 15,000 men and women is an increase from 1,500 men and women that protected this border 10 years before. Those 15,000 men and women have 42,000 vehicles of every type imaginable. They have drones, they have airplanes, they have helicopters, they have jets, they have trucks, they have motorcycles, they've got quads, they've got horses, bicycles, anything that you can imagine they have. A Homeland Security truck costs about $80,000 for a single truck. The expenditures that are being made here are extraordinary. There are no performance evaluation criteria. In other words, how do you decide if you're being successful? And then if we swing our camera down here, we see all of a sudden that this $48 billion wall turns into some railroad ties and what fencing that's called Normandy fencing, and I will demonstrate to you how difficult it is to go into Mexico without any strain or effort. I will just climb through the wall. Oh, there's thousands of Border Patrol people. So this is hard to understand for a fellow like myself. How is it that we spent $48 billion building this thing, maintaining it, and another $70 billion for the department? Does it make any sense? Is this comprehensible? We push this nation away, and in so doing, we wound ourselves. When you go to the grocery store and buy apples, where were they grown? Were they grown in Washington State and Oregon? No. Those apples lie rotting in the ground because there's no one to pick them. Instead, we buy our apples from Chile, where they are grown without any kind of controls on pesticides, without any kind of protection for the workers, and we consume them in this country. Is that better for our nation? What is better for our nation? A policy of fear or a policy of business and prosperity?